Harja, today marks the 124th day in Gaza. This was never a war of defence. It's being executed as a war of ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people, not only in Gaza but also in the West Bank. A war of genocide which has been broadcast and recorded in real time by the victims of that same genocide. Gaza is now a graveyard for children, a cemetery for international law, and it will be forever remembered as the place when so-called Western democracies stood back and were complicit with an attempt to annihilate the Palestinian people, their society and their culture. Gaza and the West Bank and the occupation of Palestine have become the most defining moral and humanitarian issue of our time. The daily atrocities, massacres and carnage are mind-numbing and they're soul-destroying. Harja, there is no coming back from this. The actions of the aggressors have crossed every conceivable diplomatic, legal and political boundary. Israel's war
Mary
in
Lou
Gaza
MacDonald, the leader of Ireland's Sinn Fein party, emphasized the urgent need for a ceasefire and adherence to international law in ongoing conflict in Palestine, Anadolu Agency reports. During a press briefing for foreign correspondents, MacDonald expressed deep concern over the relentless violence engulfing the entire Middle East, comparing it to a distressing movie unfolding day by day. She underscored the necessity for unified global action, stressing that the Irish community speaks with one voice, demanding an end to the bloodshed. We took the opportunity to make sure that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak heard very loudly and clearly in terms of our view on Palestine and ceasefire, MacDonald said, highlighting the importance of cohesive messaging and unwavering advocacy for peace. Directing her message primarily to Israel, MacDonald emphasized the imperative of a ceasefire on all sides. She criticized the ambiguity of international messaging, asserting that mixed signals only serve to fuel the conflict. The second piece has to be clarity of international messaging and leadership on the application of international law, MacDonald asserted, emphasizing that adherence to international law must be unequivocal, with no exceptions for any party involved. She commended South Africa for its proactive stance in bringing the Palestine issue to international courts, heralding it as a significant step towards ensuring accountability and justice, and urged the Irish government to actively participate in the legal proceedings. MacDonald also reiterated Sinn Fein's support for the recognition of the Palestinian state within the borders of 1967, aligning with calls from various international entities for a two-state solution. We're small islands, we're not some kind of superpower. But we do bring an experience and a perspective, we have a voice, and we are absolutely determined that we will continue to talk on Palestine, she affirmed. Ireland is in talks with other EU members who want a review of the EU-Israel Association Agreement on the basis that Israel may be breaching the agreement's human rights clause, Prime Minister Leo Varadkar told reporters in Brussels on Thursday. Reuters reports. A number of EU states are also talking about a possible joint recognition of a Palestinian state after the current conflict, he said. EU-Israeli relations are founded on an agreement which has a human rights clause, and a lot of us believe that Israel may be in breach of it, Varadkar told reporters following an EU summit. That's something we're talking about. There isn't full agreement, but it's something I called for today and I called for last December. Ireland has long been a champion of Palestinian rights, and ministers have repeatedly said the government is considering recognizing a Palestinian state. Speaking at the end of the EU summit, Varadkar said there were a lot of very like-minded countries around the EU table. Another thing we are talking about is recognition. That a number of EU states acting together to recognize Palestine could allow a more equal negotiation to happen after the war has ended in Gaza in and around a two-state solution, he said.
Since 2007, we the Palestinians are killing and taking hostages of innocent civilians. However, what has unfolded since the 7th of October to the attacks on Israeli soldiers and civilians has gone far beyond what the Prime Minister of Israel and his far-right governments has described as a self-defense. It was beyond rage and revenge. And what about the self-defense of the Palestinians? For almost 4 months, Actually, we enter the 5th month now. The people of Gaza has been exposed to the most savage and barbaric aggressions in our history, and I called it Nakba 23.